is hereby given to the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter of said city, that will convene in a workshop, an executive session, and a special meeting on Monday, April the 29th, 2013 at 5:30 p.m., 5:45 p.m., and 6 p.m. in the Commission Chambers on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall, located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas. Workshop item A, Brownsville Economic Development Corporation, update on SpaceX.
Mayor, members of the City Commission,
Gil.
thanks for having us here. My name is Gilberto Salinas, and I'm the Executive Vice President with the Brownsville Economic Development Council. And with me, I'm going to have also Alejandro Mata and Gerardo Martinez, who are part of our Brownsville launch team, who will be helping me deliver a few words in regards to the presentation we'll be making today about SpaceX. Okay, transforming destiny. As I mentioned, that's the one of the taglines that we're using to describe the team. It's a grassroots effort, a grassroots team to get out in the community and really just inform people about what the project is. I'll circle back to that here in a bit. Just an overview on the presentation. I'll touch a little bit on the actual launch site, the project, what it is, the specifications of the project, placement considerations. Why is it that they're looking at this area and why they continue to look at this area? Some of the external variables. What do we have to do in order to close up the deal, the project? The environmental process, as well as the incentives, the timeline, and then everything else that's leading up to the public hearing, which is going to be next week. So the SpaceX project, what exactly is it for those who have not heard about the project? It's SpaceX is a commercial space flight company that's headquartered in the LA area. They're the only commercial enterprise. There's 4 of them right now, and they're the only ones that have successfully connected to the International Space Station and retrieved the capsule. Only the US, Russia, and China have done that. So we're in good company knowing that this private enterprise has done that. Currently, they are launching a series of Falcon 9 rockets from the Cape Canaveral in the process of building a second launch site in Vandenberg, California, and we're hopeful that their 3rd site will be here in the Brownsville, Texas area. We're in competition with Puerto Rico, Florida, and Georgia. As you can see here in this diagram, that's the Dragon capsule. That is what will actually be launched into space from here, from the Brownsville area, if they were to choose to launch from here. On your far right-hand side, you can see that's the actual Falcon 9 rocket. Highlighted in yellow is an image of the Falcon 9, as you can see, how it stacks up with the space shuttle. So it's pretty much, it has the same height as the actual space shuttle and the same speed. Elon Musk, he's the founder and one of the owners of the company. And in his words, what's so special about the project, at least what I think is, he said that this would be the first ever commercial rocket launch site in the world. All rocket launch sites right now are on federal property. That's both in the U.S. as well as foreign. And this would be the first commercial one, which, I mean, if that doesn't tell you that this is a project of significance, I'm not too sure what does. The actual site, if they were to choose the Brownsville area, we'd be looking at about 600 direct jobs, 400 indirect jobs. They would be paying a minimum salary of $55,000 a year. Looking at attracting upward of 15,000 visitors per launch. Right now at the Cape Canaveral, for every unmanned launch, they're attracting about 40,000 visitors. I'm not too sure we would get 40,000 visitors, or for that matter, 20. We're figuring about 15,000 visitors. Nonetheless, we don't have enough hotel rooms in Cameron County to accommodate 15,000 visitors. So that's a problem for, well, Brownsville Visitors Convention Bureau, for them to figure out. On the launches, they'd be looking at launching 10 of the Falcon 9 rockets, and that would actually include final assembly. As you can see in this image right here, that is the Falcon 9 being assembled in one of the hangars. That would actually occur here. Then the Falcon Heavy. That rocket is too big to actually transport on U.S. highways, so that they would be launching 2 of those per year here from the area. Full manufacturing and assembly would occur at the Brownsville site, should they choose this area. Also, they would have a launch command center, similar to what Houston has right now. and then a ground control center. This is a project that we are, both Brownsville as well as the University of Texas Brownsville and SpaceX is working, and that would be those huge satellites that are found in Hawaii, Colorado, and I think Florida as well, to track the vehicles once they enter space. The Boca Chica Beach area was one of 8 sites actually considered back in the 1950s by NASA, so it's pretty interesting how now life has come back in full circle and we're getting a second opportunity. We're the southernmost city in the continental United States. That's what's attractive of this area, where it's still further south than Miami, Florida. We're next to the Gulf of Mexico, so they need a huge body of water to launch from in order, in case something happens, the rocket falls in the ocean. And we're a logistics and manufacturing hub. That's also attractive for the project. I mean, we're 4 generations into building components for the automotive industry, which would be extremely similar to building a rocket. And this would actually complement their current facility that they have in McGregor, Texas, which is about 20 miles west of the Waco area. And as you can see this image here, this is a hangar for the Falcon 9, as well as the Falcon Heavy that they're finishing building at their second site, which is in Vandenberg, California. And that's pretty much what it would look like should they build here in the Brownsville area. So you can see this is an image diagram of a map depicting the areas that are in competition with the Brownsville area. This was published a couple of weeks ago in spacenews.com, which is a highly read publication in the aerospace industry. And as you can see, Brownsville is shown as a likely candidate. They already have a facility in central Texas. Shiloh is the area around Cape Canaveral. That's also a candidate. And then the dark horse, as of late, Georgia has come on pretty strong in competing for this project. There's 4 external variables that we have to work with, knowing that when it's an external variable, we don't have full control over them. Nonetheless, this is what we're working on right now in order to close a deal with SpaceX. One of them is actually amending the law, that is the Noise Ordinance and Liability. Senate Bill 1632 was introduced by Chairman Davis. The key here is that he's out of the Houston area. About more than a year ago, we started working with Houston, Midland, McGregor, Waco, and then the Bay Area. We're all working different space projects right now, and it's to our interest that we amend the law as it pertains to the noise ordinance, because we're all working these separate projects. I think we have the best one. Nonetheless, we've been working as a team for Texas. The law currently excludes commercial and private airports, and for some reason, firearm shooting ranges in the state of Texas from the noise ordinance. So now what we have to do is include commercial launch sites from the noise ordinance. It also includes a liability aspect to the law. Texas Open Beaches Act, that's an extension of the first variable. And right now we have to work to amend that Texas law, and that's House Bill 2623 that was introduced by Representative Rene Oliveira of Brownsville. And it calls for a temporary closure. That's the key word, temporary closure of Boca Chica Beach for a period of 6 to 15 hours prior to a launch. So right now, as it stands, a beach cannot be closed for commercial purposes. It has to be for a public purpose. So we have to find a way to tweak that law that applies only to the southernmost public beach in the state of Texas, which in this case is Boca Chica. And for the closure, there would be SpaceX would be required to publicly advertise the closure, so it's not like they're going to spring it up at last minute. And then SpaceX has also agreed to provide vouchers in case somebody does show up to the beach when it's closed for a launch. They can take that voucher and go to South Padre Island, where you usually have to pay to get into Isla Blanca Park. Also on the Open Beaches Act, that's an image of activity at Boca Chica Beach. It continues to be a popular fishing spot, one spot that I go to fish, continue to go fish at. And it's SpaceX has said if they're given the 6 to 15 hours of closure before a launch, they would probably require about 6 hours. They don't anticipate closing for more than that time period. It would be 1 time a month, 12 times per year. It also states that it would be between Monday and Friday. It would exclude weekends and not on summer holidays. So SpaceX has been pretty accommodating in working with us, with Cameron County, as well as the General Land Office in the temporary closure of the beach. Now there's some myths out there. We've had some people ask us about South Bay. Well, South Bay will not be closed. South Bay will not be affected by launches by SpaceX. And then also South Padre Island. People have been asking about that. The island, believe me, is not going to be closed and will not be affected as well. Second external variable, we're looking at the incentives. I mean, at the end of the day, we are in competition with the 3 other states, and as of late, Georgia has been a stiff competitor. So, you know, there's a package that we are working with several entities. This is the first time I've seen several entities really come together and unite in trying to recruit one company. That's the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation, along with us. The state of Texas, that's where the lead came from. It was through the governor's office. So you know, Governor Perry has met with the founder of the company, Elon Musk, on a couple of occasions. The University of Texas at Brownsville, that's through the Stargate program, and Mr. Alberto Mata will touch a little bit on that. Then Cameron County, you know, through the Spaceport Development Corporation. Now there's a mechanism in place in trying to work these projects. And then South Padre Island has also said that they'll find a way to work in trying to recruit SpaceX to the area. The third external variable, because of the remoteness of the facility, we have to address infrastructure. At the end of the day, you know, this can be done. It's just a matter of how much does it drive the cost up. We have to get electrical lines out to the area. Remember this at Boca Chica Beach, where there's hardly any infrastructure. So we're looking at the lines. It's got to be both overhead and underground, as well as a backup generation facility on site. I mean, they are going to be, you know, launching rockets, so they can't afford to lose power. What are the water needs for the facility for both the daily operation as well as the actual launches? And then wastewater, that's something we need to address as well. Fiber optic cabling, as we all know, that gets pricey extremely quickly. Soil conditions, this is Brownsville, and soil it just depends where you're building. It could drive up the cost or it might not. And then the other one is Highway 4. We need to look to see if that's going to be, from what we can gather, it's an adequate highway and it'll handle the traffic that is needed for that particular site. And then with that, it leads me into Project Stargate, which is a project that will help enhance what we're already doing in trying to recruit SpaceX. With that, I will introduce Mr. Alberto Mata. He is a undergraduate student at the University of Texas at Brownsville. He's a physics major, and he's part of the Arecibo program, and he has joined our Brownsville launch team, which is an effort to get the word out for the project. And he is a graduate of Hanna High School, 2010. So he's this is exactly what we're trying to get this project for students like them. So with that, I'll have Mr. Mata.
Hello. So Stargate actually stands for Spacecraft's Tracking and Astronomical Research into Gigahertz Astro-Transient Emissions. Yes, it is a mouthful. But it is a partnership between SpaceX and the Center for Advanced Radio Astronomy, also known as CARA, at the University of Texas at Brownsville. And now CARA is home to the Arecibo Remote Command Center, also known as ARC. And what ARC is, it is a team of mostly undergraduates and a few graduates that are conducting astrophysics research. Now, an extremely important part of this program is that our students actually control radio instruments throughout the world, some of which are the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, the LWA, the Long Wavelength Array in New Mexico, and the Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia. And so we are actually radio experts, and we can provide radio experts to SpaceX. Now, you might wonder, why does SpaceX need radio experts? And so the reason is, currently SpaceX only launches from government facilities, and so the government takes care of doing their radar tracking. Now, part of one of the obstacles that SpaceX must overcome when setting up their own private launch spaceport, is that they have to track their own rockets. And that's something that we can actually provide. Now, how did this happen? Actually, at the first open forum that SpaceX held, a couple of our scholars were there and actually convinced the SpaceX to walk down the hall and visit one of our labs, which just so happened to be in the same building as the open forum. As SpaceX was touring our lab and actually looking at the instruments that we are actually currently building, they realized that we used the same technology that they use in their rockets. And at this moment, Stargate was born. So what is Project Stargate? It is the ground tracking station that will be in charge of tracking the rockets before and once they exit the atmosphere. It will consist of 4 dishes, and it will be at the Boca Chica site. And this is actually an independent project from SpaceX, meaning that they will be here whether or not the comes down. And so this facility would be needed by SpaceX once a month, meaning that the rest of the month is our time to do research and education. So we have that facility at our disposal, at our use. And just like that, I'm here to tell you today that our community actually has students, top-notch students and rising scientists that have already impressed SpaceX. And that is the reason they're coming down and forming Project Stargate.
Okay, thank you. Future Brownsville rocket scientist. I mean, that just sounds cool. I don't.
Yeah, and didn't I see, who's going to be your graduation speaker?
I forget her name, but she is one of a representative from SpaceX.
Right, so that's another connection there, which I think is really great. Good work, good work.
That's actually Ann Chinnery, and I believe she's the director of launch operations. Okay, with that, we get to the fourth external variable. That would be the draft of the environmental impact statement, the actual study. It's a process that started a year and a half ago in working with SpaceX, and it's a study to address the potential environmental risks. No different from building a road or a bridge. It's got to go through an environmental process. And the study's already been made available as of a couple of weeks ago. It's a 350-page document. It's available at the Brownsville Public Library, the Southmost Public Library, the University Library, and it's also on the FAA website for download. And as you can see in this image here, leading into the actual EIS, that is a photo, an image of the launch site that they have at Cape Canaveral. As you can see, it's in the middle of a wetland area. And because they're in the middle of a wetland area and there's been no development out there because of a launch site, it's actually helped the wildlife refuge thrive and flourish. And that's what we would expect down on the Boca Chica Beach area, because there would be no development associated, being close to an actual launch site. It would help the area's wildlife flourish. Timeline, where are we at right now? This is a project that we started a little more than 2 years ago. The actual EIS started in April 2012, and in May 2012, about a year ago, we had the first public scoping hearing where we had more than 550 people show up, 76 of which signed up to speak, 74 spoke in favor, 1 was neutral, 1 was negative. Then just a couple months ago in March, the FAA finished up the draft EIS, where they grabbed all of the comments from 14 different federal agencies, in addition to the comments that the Brownsville people had delivered at the actual EIS hearing. And then just last month, or a couple weeks ago, they made that publication available. So now we're looking next week, May 7th, is going to be the second and the final public hearing by the FAA, and this is going to be our last opportunity to go out and voice our support for the project. And then in August 2013, it's anticipated that the final EIS will be complete, and then in September, the record of decision will be published. So that's when the FAA comes back out and says, SpaceX, you can launch, or SpaceX, you cannot launch. If they say you can, here's all the issues or risks that you need to mitigate. With that said, that leads me into the actual meat of the EIS. If you haven't read the 350-page document, then we've condensed it in a few slides for you. With that, I will introduce another member of our Launch Brownsville team. That's Gerardo Martinez. He is an engineer at CPAC. He is a MIT graduate. He's also a Brownsville guy, graduated from Porter High School in 1995. And is extremely excited to be working and trying to help recruit the company here to Brownsville. With that, we have Gerardo.
Hello. So I'll be talking about the impact, and again, there's going to be more details in the report. We just wanted to highlight some of the main points associated with each impact. For Boca Chica Beach, the closure of the beach during the launch, that's a given. We've discussed that earlier. The launch maximum of 12 times per year, once a month, with no more than 15 hours per launch. So that's written in the report. SpaceX anticipates only about 6 hours, so that's really the target, but the longest duration would be 15 hours. SpaceX will be creating and adopt a beach program to help assure that the beach continues to flourish. And they will also organize these cleanups, and they will provide environmental education courses. Impact number 2, as labeled in the report, is associated with the sea turtles. Launch will produce 3 minutes of noise per launch. So in total, that's 36 minutes per year. Sea Turtle Inc. has been integrated into the process, and they will be conducting private sweeps during the closure. So even though the public is out, Sea Turtle Inc. will be allowed on the beach to sweep and assure that there's no turtles there that are going to be impacted. Turtles tend to nest on high wind days, so it's less likely for launches, so we don't anticipate any direct conflicts. And also the lighting on the structures there are going to be designed to minimize the impact on the beach and the animals on the beach. Impact with the general biological of the beach. One is there will be enforcing a speed limit on Highway 4. Currently that's not happening. There will also be providing signage that would say something like "Watch out for ocelots and jaguar rundis." There will be field reps there to train contractors on environmental sensitivities when they go and begin any construction. Again, the light will be minimized, and they will also be conducting surveys pre and post for some of the well-known bird species on the beach. Impact. Another impact is the visual structures. They will be minimizing the number of tall structures. Currently, the design will have 1 water tower and 4 lightning towers. Tall structures will be painted with non-reflective paint, and the colors for those buildings will be blended with the background. As far as the wetlands, there's no significant impact. Site layout designed to minimize wetland construction. Additional mitigations through U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and wetland construction permitting. We also have a category called Others that addresses some other impacts. The farmland or coastal resources, there will be no significant impact. Also, as stated in the report, it says they would not reduce the enjoyment of the beach. It will not impact the air quality, the surface water, groundwater resources. It will not introduce any hazardous materials, and it will not affect any public services. Lastly, the impact of small significance. This states that there are 3 historical properties that may be physically damaged from vibrations. These in particular are the historical markers that are in the area. Socioeconomics changes would affect Boca Chica Beach Village residents, but it's not considered a large impact to the environment, just as population. And also noise, as mentioned earlier, short-term increases from truck traffic in the community are anticipated.
Thank you, Gerardo. Now with that, I'll wrap up the presentation for May 7th. That's next Tuesday. 5 o'clock, we're going to be hosting the next, well, not we, but the FAA is going to be hosting the next, the second and the final public hearing for the environmental process of the SpaceX. Like I said, last year we had more than 550 people show up. There was overwhelming support for the project. But I will say that since then we've seen that there's some opposition. We're going to see some people opposing the project. Before it used to be people that did not live in the Brownsville area, for that matter, that had never visited the Boca Chica Beach area. Well, now we're getting some people locally that are asking, they're opposing it, but are really misinformed about what the project is. And what we're asking everybody is, show up, be heard, ask questions. SpaceX will be there on hand. Ask them questions. Submit a testimonial. I mean, show up, sign up, and you can submit something in writing, something real simple. And in Elon Musk's words, we've met with him, and the mayor's been fortunate enough to meet with him, and he told us that he was he was pleased to see the amount of support last year for his project. However, if there's any sense of negativity or opposition for the project, I mean, it's his company. He's not going to take it where there's that negativity. It would be a self-defeating purpose for him to do so. So that tells me that we have an opportunity to actually make a difference. We're dealing with the actual decision maker of the company. Moving on to the actual Launch Brownsville Transforming Destiny. We're sending out daily reminders by way of just little snippets of information about the project, what it is. As you can see here, it just talks a little bit about the Falcon 9. It was actually named after Elon Musk's favorite childhood movie aircraft, the Millennium Falcon from the Star Wars trilogy. And at the very bottom, it'll say May 7th. It's just a constant reminder that May 7th is a public hearing. On our website, you can now download the actual study itself, information about the project, the T- campaign, all the information related to the project. We also have a Twitter campaign where we're tweeting and chirping, whatever it is that the tweeters do. Facebook as well. So the information's out there. Here's the Twitter address and the Facebook address. And lastly, what does this mean? We have an opportunity to really get Brownsville out there. We have an opportunity to work a project that's going to transform what I believe our destiny. Hardly does a community get an opportunity like that. And what does it mean for, in my eyes, it means, Brownsville, here's a golden opportunity. It's time for you to believe in yourself. Don't worry about other cities that are perhaps 60, 70 miles away from us. We have it all. We have this great opportunity, this great project. Show up May 7th, be heard, support the project, and just think big.
Well, Gil, I want to thank all of you for coming here at Ardo and the young man. You might also want to include, if you guys are readers of the Time magazine, which I am, he was named one of the 100 most influential. Elon Musk was. He was on the cover. There was 4 covers, and he was on the cover of Time magazine last week. There was an article that was written by Richard Branson, who is the founder of Virgin Airways, who's also in the space arena. You might want to put that on your website. Okay. It's an interesting article that talks about how visionary he is. And so, again, what we'd like to do in Brownsville is promote projects that we know are worthy. We've done our due diligence. We feel like they will contribute greatly to the community, and I think it'll be great for the kids and the young people as they're growing up. You don't have to go somewhere else to be a space rocket engineer. So thanks again for all your hard work.
Thank you. Brain drain?
No.
Here it is. I mean, the list goes on and on. Also, I would like to just quickly recognize Mr. John Lynch. He was here with Porter High School. He's one of the engineering instructors at the Magnet program over there, and Jorge Montero, also part of our Launch Brownsville. There's about a dozen community individuals that are just helping us, get informed people so they can make a decision based on facts on the project.
Very good.
Thank you.
Estella, I think we now go to executive session.
Yes, sir. Executive session, item A, consultation with attorney pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0712 on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the duties under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code.
We go to executive session, ma'am? Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we're running already about 30 minutes past, so we're going to call this meeting to order. We could stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Carlos Barrera, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
And John? Where's John? Okay. Would you lead us in the invocation? Thank you.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity for such a wonderful community and the future so bright. We thank you for these leaders, these commissioners and mayors and others, and we pray that you'd work through them, that we could better our city together. And Father, we ask that you do bring new jobs, new opportunities, but I pray for wisdom, knowledge, and discernment for this committee as they meet, and discernment that they need to make the right decisions. We ask for forgiveness when we fall short. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
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 Okay. Action item number 8, please.
Action on item discussed in executive session. Action to award a term contract for fleet management and maintenance services for the city of Brownsville.
Mayor, I would like to, on this item, I would like to maybe modify the contract so that we can have a performance evaluation, maybe at a 6-month interval.
There's a motion on the table and there's a motion to amend, so you would first move on the motion to amend. If that passes,
So there,
so there's a motion on the table, there's a motion to amend the motion. You'd vote whether the motion should be amended or not first, and then you'd vote on the
that was
agenda.
Motion and second on the original.
Right. You'd vote on her motion to amend first. If it passed,
okay, but there's a motion to amend. Does that have to have a second?
that has to have a second.
I'll second that. I think that's a
Motion
good
to
compromise.
amend, second. All those in favor to amend, is that correct?
To amend the motion in
The
accordance
motion
with our
that
terms.
Mr.
But my motion.
But she
stood without
needs to
amendment.
state it specifically.
Okay.
Mayor, my motion stood without an amendment.
We would agree to that, Commissioner. We need to get a contract. We'll agree to the 6 month,
It's a good compromise.
1 year, 2-year evaluation of the company.
Do you
Okay,
withdraw your motion?
I think
No.
for a change, I'm more confused than usual. But maybe I'm just a little tired, and I shouldn't be with it being only Monday.
There's a motion on the floor. She made a motion to amend. He's not taking it as a friendly amendment, so the commission would vote on whether or not to accept her amendment or
Okay, so
not.
in other words, her motion to amend and a second is on the floor presently, and so now we got to vote yay.
Whether or not to amend the
Listen.
motion.
Listen, if my accepting Commissioner's friendly motion is gonna get this damn contract approved and get people back to work, I'll accept the friendly motion.
Okay,
And
so
we'll put
now,
it in, but please, let's get this thing approved.
okay, so now we have a motion that has accepted the amendment, and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay,
They've been working. Nobody's out of work.
okay, it's good. Okay, that's behind us.
Presentation,
Presentations, Pete?
bond credit rating. That includes that the contract passed as it is or with modification?
With the modification.
Contract passes with 6 months.
Okay, you got your motion. Okay, presentation, Pete, would you please?
I don't know, Mayor, members of the City Commission, this is just a view of the rating criteria or report that the 3 rating agencies have done for us the last few years, and that's Moody's Investors, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. I'm going to jump here. These are the ratings that, a table of the ratings of the 3 major rating agencies, which includes Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. And there's best quality, high quality, upper medium, and medium grade. Way back in 1986, that's the first time that I had experience with rating agencies when we they rated our bonds. Moody's at that time in 1986 gave us a rating of Baa1, and Baa1 is they're at the medium grade at the bottom. Then throughout the years, all the way through today, that rating has improved by Moody's all the way to Aa3. So we've had 4 upgrades since 1986. Standard & Poor's in 1986 gave us an A-, and just most recently in December of 2012, the rating went up to a AA-. Fitch ratings started with an A several years later, and right now we're at AA-. So if you look at that scale, you'll see that Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch are giving us the same rating, which is the high quality rating. And this is something I just covered. I'm not going to go into it. One of the areas that Moody's looks at for strength is the growth in the in large tax base. That's what they reported on the November 27, 2012 report. They also noted that we had improved financial operations, that they have improved in fiscal year 2012. Some of the challenges that they see are above average debt burden, relatively narrow liquidity, and weak social economic profile. Of course, this weak social economic profile is related to unemployment, it's related to poverty in our area, and so forth. Also education, that is not as high as it should be. Standard & Poor's, they rated us on December 5th of 2012. Some of the strengths that they used, and by the way, in 2012, they raised our long-term rate from an A+ to a AA-. They indicated diverse local economy, continued maintenance of strong financial position and reserves, and good financial management practices. That's something that they saw. And again, that information is included in your packet. This is just a summary. Standard & Poor's challenges, low wealth, income levels obviously are low, exposure to potential disruption or declines in cross-border trade, and moderate overall net debt burden. Then in Fitch ratings, they indicated we have a tax base and economic growth have remained positive throughout the recession, benefited from a strong international investment, proximity to Mexico, and extensive and expanded transportation network, robust international trade, et cetera, et cetera. Low cost of living is another area they look at. Some of the areas that they looked at that seemed positive were they include a 10-year management team, conservative budgeting, maintenance of adequate general fund reserves, and the audited, which will be presented to you later today, the audit report reflect a strengthening revenue trends, additional cost reductions, and improved net margins. Fitch reported in, this is an overall report of the nation, they said that many municipalities continue to experience fiscal stress throughout the country. Downgrades outpaced upgrades by a wide margin. Through July 2012, 12% of local governments, tech-supported rated, were downgraded, and that's government similar to us. There were only upgrades of only 2%. And of course, over the past year, 7 local U.S. governments have filed for bankruptcy out of an estimated 52,000 municipalities and school districts. And some of those bankruptcies are in California or in the southeast area of the nation. And of course, you also have Detroit, who's having some financial problems. This is as far as debt, how much debt can we actually issue? There is a limit. Normally, a practice about 5% of your assessed valuation. And if you take the assessed valuation times 5%, you're at $269,354,125. That we would actually be okay if we had that much debt. The total debt right now is $149,780. So we have a window that we can issue more debt based on that formula of $122 million. We do have our debt is some of it is self-supported, and that's the Paseo de la Resaca, the linear park, construction of the Brownsville Community Incentive Corporation, the sports park, and then there's also some airport improvements that the JBIC is funding for us. So altogether, there is a self-funded debt of $8 million. So the taxable debt is $145 million plus. One of the things that we need to emphasize every year is our reserves. If you look at the reserves, and this is in the audit report, for the year 2012, we had a fund balance of $20.9 million. But out of that, 6.122,091 is already taken or actually committed or reserved for other purposes. So in reality, the unassigned fund balance at the end of 2012 was $14,838,22. This is the only money that's actually there to spend that had not been appropriated, or what we call reserves. Not the 20 million, but the 14,838,000. If we look at the at 2012, as far as reserves, we had an unassigned fund balance of 16.36% as compared to 12.47% the previous year. So we did have an improvement between 2011 and 2012. This is just, again, this is in the audit report, total unassigned fund balance of all the funds is $14,838,000, and that's in the general fund. What causes a credit upgrade? Well, continued growth in the tax base, solid base performance leading to improved liquidity, and of course, if you improve your social economic profile. What causes a credit downgrade? Well, narrowing of current reserve position and significant tax-based contraction. Something that we need to look at during this fiscal year, we've had some budget amendments that are going to be affecting our unassigned fund balance. So far, we have $2,483,000, $2,485,000. We know that there are some monies that are going to be returned to the general fund, and those for the home lots that are going to be sold in the near future, and that money obviously is going to go back to the general fund. There are some potential budget amendments that will be coming to you within the next week or so, or a few weeks. Mr. Granada will present this to you later, and this is something that we're going to be discussing with you as far as budget amendments. Of course, we're still looking at the sequestration. You've heard of that term, and that's causing right now, the problem that we're having right now is the airport tower. We still don't have an answer whether or not we're going to be losing any funding. It's still up in the air. Of course, this term refers to automatic across-the-board spending cuts to federal government agencies. And of course, it was created in 2011 over the U.S. debt ceiling.
Mayor, on that allotment for I thought Sandy was paying for the movement of the home, for the relocation of the home.
Yeah, we didn't spend any money on the relocation.
So those $25,000 were spent on what?
What?
Well, there's monies that we gave the Brownsville Historical Association. We contributed money for them, and that's not in the budget yet. That's going to be part of the budget amendment.
But it's listed as the relocation of the house, or
Ma'am?
But is it for the relocation of the house?
That's what the payment was for, yes, sir.
It says reimbursement on there.
In other words, the city contributed $25,000 to the BHA as a reimbursement for the relocation of the Stillman House Ranch from Corpus Christi.
We didn't.
Would be that we gave, Mr. Stillman paid for the relocation of the home. The Stillman people still needed $25,000 for other work that they had pending. So that's what we're giving the Stillman an
Okay.
extra $25,000.
No.
No, well, I don't know about what
But there's still, you're correct in saying Mr. Stillman
Okay.
is paying for the relocation. We need to change that.
because it was, my understanding was it was $60,000 that was paid to that mover, and I personally saw that he paid that $60,000. So this is a different one than the $25,000.
Right, that $25,000 is something else. We need to check that.
Could we have clarification on that, please?
Yeah, this is money, again, this is money that we paid the Brownsville Historical Association, and that is what the background information of that particular invoice has. So that's what it says.
We have so many nonprofits that come before us requesting funding that we turn away, and they go
Well-
on the agenda. I know, Pete, it's not you, it's what was provided to you, but I'm just wondering
Well,
why this one kind of
All
slipped
I'm,
through.
we just
and
want to
the
make sure we
others
bring this up to you because it's going to come back. It's going to come to you for voting in the near future. We need a budget amendment. This particular line item that's in the budget does not have a budget. So we want to allocate funding for that particular expenditure. That's what all this is for.
So that is
Clerk.
the expenditure, the relocation?
This is money that we issue, additional money to the Brownsville Historical Association other than what they had in their budget at the beginning of the year.
Okay. That's interesting.
And again, we also look at revenues, and again, this is something that's going to be brought up to you later. We are having some budget shortfalls as far as revenues. We have, the bridge fund is an example. The traffic for some reason or another, at the Veterans Bridge is not generating enough revenues that we anticipated. It's $385,000. There is a positive in the sales tax of $360,000. Landfill, for some reason, there has been less tonnage being deposited at the landfill, and this is something that less than what we had in previous years. So that's going to have an impact on the budget. And if you look at it, it's $522,000 for general fund based on what we see through March of this year. So that's another area that we look at. Again, we have a tonnage of a decrease of 7.82%. And really that's, again, the emphasis here is to want to make sure that we continue to have a strong fund balance in order for us to maintain our ratings. And this is just a presentation.
Pete, do we have any idea how our budget for streets looks for next year? Or the next fiscal year?
We are right now, based on what we see so far, Commissioner, we are going to be coming to you and asking you to issue a certificate of obligation for streets. Sometime in October, there are some bonds that we can refund. There's about $24 million worth of bonds that will generate savings for us. And we're talking about maybe $250,000, $300,000 yearly savings if we refund those bonds. So there would be an opportunity for us to at least include maybe monies for streets. But this is something that will come to you sometime in October, November of this year. We're limited in monies for streets. That is your question. But we did issue $3 million this fiscal year for streets. We issued some COs. We plan to do the same thing next year.
Thank you, Pete.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I think a recent trend would show that we've been cutting back on the streets budget, right?
Yeah, so, well, some of the things that we, that in the office that I have, some of the complaints that come in, obviously, are for streets, and obviously that the main thing is the funding.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it. Okay, purchases, bids, contracts.
Item number 2, consideration and action to award a contract for the installation of sidewalks and bus stops for West Brownsville.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Andrew Munoz, Assistant Director, will be making both of these presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This item is part of our ongoing ADA bus stop and bus shelter improvements. The proposed area in this agenda item is to cover West Downtown, West Jefferson, and the Belden Trail areas. Brownsville Metro staff with City Engineering and Purchasing requested a request for bids for construction services. Based on the engineering department's bid tabulations for the bids received, Arbor Construction was the lowest responsive bidder at $210,733.60. Staff has reviewed the bid tabulation and recommends for approval Arbor Construction for $210,733.60. The primary funding is from an expiring TxDOT grant, and local match is at 20%. Funding is available and within budget.
Approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 3, consideration and action to authorize change order number 1, La Plaza Parking Garage Construction for 14th Street ADA sidewalk improvements.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is an item, change order to the Spalglass Construction Manager at Risk for the parking garage and 14th Street improvements. This was something we addressed under a TxDOT Transportation Enhancement Grant for the improvements of 14th Street, specifically on 14th Street, specifically between Elizabeth and Washington. It's the kind of a little park area in there. We do have expiring grant funds. What we want to do is we want to be able to address those, take care of some pedestrian grading issues, move the pavers to salt rock concrete, kind of what we did at the terminal, improve some of the landscaping, electrical issues we have out there. The fountain and the bollards will also stay in place. We're just changing a little bit of everything else, making it a little bit pedestrian friendly, ADA friendly. This is part of the multimodal project. It was also part of a grant we applied for under the Transportation Enhancement with TxDOT. We have an expiring grant with TxDOT. We'd like to go ahead and proceed with that part of the project. The contract amount for the change order is $329,947. That brings the, excuse me one second. The new construction budget limitation not to exceed for the project, $4,429,947. Staff recommends approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Action item number 4.
Item number 4, consideration and action on resolution number 2013-028 in support of development of a commercial launch site in the area of Brownsville, Texas by Space Exploration Technologies, Inc.
Mayor, Commission, you have a resolution relating to the presentation done by Gilbert Salinas, Albert Mata, the student at UTB, physics major, and Gerardo Martinez.
Okay.
It's a resolution basically detailing the facts that they presented to us, and they just want this resolution in support from the mayor and the commission.
I hear a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 5, consideration and action on resolution number 2013-029, naming Mr. Ruben Edelstein as Mayor Emeritus of Brownsville, Texas.
Commissioners, this is an item that I would like to see y'all approve. For some of you who may not remember or know or were still too young, Ruben Edelstein was our mayor here in Brownsville for several years. He was very instrumental in starting a lot of great projects. Mr. Edelstein presently, I believe, is now 95 years of age. As some of you, I think I've spoken to each one of you individually that we're going to do a State of the City on May the 14th, and I think it would be appropriate, as most of you know, a mayor emeritus simply allows this gentleman to have the title of mayor for so long as he lives, and actually allows him to use it in any way he wishes. And I would find it to be a personal favor if I could entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much.
Item 6, acknowledgement of the city's comprehensive annual financial report and single audit report for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2012.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Commission, Mr. Carlos Barrera will make that presentation, this presentation. For those who did bring their audit reports, I'll go ahead and give you a copy.
No, we got them. We don't want to chop any trees down.
Now, I come back.
I brought mine.
Considering Pete stole all my thunder, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to have up there to say, but I am going to be brief. And so I will, everybody has their reports. Let me just, before I begin, let me just turn to page 64. We'll start with that. And we're just going to talk about the general fund, because after all, with all the funds you all have, really that's the one you really look at, because everything else is either restricted or earmarked for something else. But 64 is the actual, and this is the governmental report. So we're looking only on that first column, and that first column where it says general, that is your general fund. And this gives you a very good synopsis of what happened during the year with respect to your revenues. And you can see the revenues at $80,797,000, and you can see where it came from: the property taxes, non-property taxes, fees and services, et cetera. And then there's also the amounts that come in from the utilities from the PUB and the surplus funds from PUB to give you total revenues of $92.7 million. On your expenditure side was about $87 million, and you can see all basically the classifications where that came from: the general government, public safety, public works, et cetera. So at the end, you had excess revenues over expenses of about $4.7 million, which is pretty good. You had other financing sources, which are transfers in and transfers out between different funds. That depleted at about $868,000. So in effect, the general fund changed about $3.8 million, and you had a $400,000 prior period adjustment, which is some reclassification of some items that should have occurred last year and didn't. So at the beginning, you started with about $16 million, and you ended up with $20 million. That was your total fund balance in your general fund. So that's what happened during the year. Now flip back a page to page 62. And in 62 is what you had left over. So now you get to the end of the year, on September 30th. In that first column, here's what you got. In cash, $3 million, investments of 9.6. And then you see all the receivables, 1.5 in delinquent, non-property of 11.6. And then you have all these other amounts due from other funds, which are all your other funds that we were talking about, internal balances, et cetera. So total assets, $32.6 million. Liability-wise, you had some payables of 4.7, accrued expenses, and deferred revenue. Deferred revenue is revenue you've taken in, but you haven't recognized for in the revenue side, because it's in advance. So you end up 11.6. So your difference between your assets and your liabilities, debits and credits, is $20,960,000, which you saw on that first page. The difference is now you look at that fund balance, and it's divided up and split up into what is spendable, non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned. And those definitions are in your financial statements. But you see your unassigned, and that's the one that Pete was referring to, 4.838. That's the one that, in effect, that you are really geared to look at from the standpoint of where you stand. Now, flipping from there, back over to page 35. 35, this information now is what they call the, it's either in an introductory section or into the management discussion analysis, which those are a little bit easier to read because they're kind of gives you a synopsis of various years. And you see your fund balances, and he showed it up there for fiscal year 2012. And those are all of your funds, all the way from general fund, all the way down to CO fund on the bottom. And so you'll see that. And you'll see on the right the $20,960,000, what we talked about. And you see the unassigned at 14.8 in the middle. Okay? Flipping the page, 36 and 37 is where he was referring to with respect to where are you in regards to historic data and what's your policy. If you look at that little verbiage in the middle where it says Exhibit 8 below, and that second sentence says the city's goal is to maintain a fund balance of at least 15% of its yearly expenditures and transfers out. So how do you stand on that? Go to the next page. And you look at that page and you'll see historically where you were, but historically we didn't split out the way we have now what we call an unassigned fund balance, but now we do. And you'll see 2011 and 2012, as he mentioned before. And on the right, that last column, it's 16.36%. So you're above your target, which is where you want to be. You were below it last year, but you're there now. And I think what he was referring to is you're right there. And you got to be careful because, as we all know, in municipalities, things can go wrong, and if revenues don't come in the way you think they're going to come in, that can go back below what your target is. But again, when you look at one year to the next, an extremely good turnaround, a very good position to be in, and that you've really come out of this hole, so to speak. There was also a graph earlier in the, and I can't remember where in here, but there's a graph in the introductory section which shows the taxable base, the taxable sales base. And you look from 2008, when it hit, you were at the highest rate you'd been. And then it went down, and it's starting to come back up, and you're almost where you were in 2008. So it's taken 5 years, which we figured it would. But you're literally at where you were 5 years ago. And hopefully that'll continue upward. The only other area that I want to talk about is the budget. And if you look at page 46 and 47, 46 and 47 gives you your budget and how you did according to what you planned. The Exhibit 16 just kind of gives you original and final budget. As we all know, you go through your year and you start off with this original budget, then you kind of come through and you have budget amendments and you go back and you amend those. But the Exhibit 17 gives you a better idea of where you stood from final to actual results. And if you look at your revenues, you thought you were going to get 90 million, you ended up getting 92.7. So 2.6 million to the better. So that's one good thing. And then on your expenditure side, you thought you were going to hit 91.9, but you only hit 87.9. So that's 3.9 million to the better. So you add those up, and you end up with, you thought you were going to be about 2 million in the hole, and you ended up being 6.6 million to the better. So again, very good plan. No, I don't say very good planning, but the stars lined up correctly, and I think that says a lot for how everything went here and with the city this last year. And if you want a better detail of this, you may want to just say refer to page 141, and it's about 3 or 4 pages, and it basically goes through every single category of for example, general government, and it'll hit every one of those in detail with respect to how you ended up. We also issued the result of all this was, and I didn't say at the beginning, was that on page 19 is our auditor's report. And I'm skipping around. It's a 300-page report, so it's pretty lengthy. But the auditor's report, as I said, there's 3 types of audit opinions. The adverse means it stinks, you can't rely on it, don't even read it. Qualified opinion means except for something that looks kind of odd, everything else looks all right. And then the clean opinion, which is the unqualified opinion. And it has been the case for all these years that we've audited, you have an unqualified opinion. You also have GFOA certification, which is now how many years, Pete? 35 years. I think you're going for a record because I don't know if any entity that I know of has been there that long, I think since the inception of the program. And it's very rigorous. So again, congratulations on that as well. As far as the single audit side, you'll see a tab that says single audit. As you well know, we do compliance audits. We only had a couple of comments on that, but really those comments, you've already addressed them, and basically relates to the home projects and the home grant monies and all that, and those have already been addressed by you. But again, this was at September 30th, so really don't have any question costs or anything of that nature. So good report, and we got it done. And I'm tired. And taxis.
We're getting there, right, Carlos? No.
I'm sorry?
We're getting there, right? No more
You're
meeting
there.
at gas stations in
No, I
New
think
Braunfels or wherever it was.
I think you're there. I remember, and I've been auditing the city for a while, and I remember one time when I audited the city, the fund balance was down like 6 million, something like that. And took a long time to bring it back up, and we used to call those the wonder years because we don't know how we ever got past. I think it actually went down almost 0, and those were pretty scary times. So that's how old I am. That's what scares me.
I don't want to go there.
I know. Anyway, I'll be more than glad to answer any questions. If not, anytime any of you have any questions on these, please give me a call and I can run it through it.
Thank you, Carlos. Appreciate it.
Would acknowledge?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.